yeah, we have Trantifa in Portland now.
Trantifa. What
Yep.
the heck is so tell me, oh my God. I just can't even stand it, dude. So what is Trantifa's deal? Like, what are they mad about?
I just assume, kind of like us, anything that the news tells them to be mad about. Anti-gay legislation, which, according to the state or the country of Canada, there's an emergency going on down here. We're all being hunted down.
Hey, everybody, I caught myself another one. Ooh, today you're going to love this. This guy wrote me and with a great, really email, and we decided to do this interview. But before we move forward, you all know I want to thank everybody always for watching the channel and liking, subscribing, hitting that bell thing, and really sending this out to your friends. The more I get, the more, subscribers I get on this channel, the bigger we become, and the more of these amazing people I can bring onto this platform and share their stories. So I do appreciate always everybody seeing what I'm trying to do here is to create dialogue and to give people who don't necessarily have the voice in this community to give them voice, because these stories are, oh my gosh, today I'm really looking forward to this. So with that, everybody, I have my new friend here, Ty. And so Ty, thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And let's introduce yourself. So why don't you go ahead and tell us all about yourself, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, totally. So my name is Ty King. I'm a Texan who moved to Oregon about eight or so years ago, right before Trump was elected. Kind of wanted to get away to Oregon because I knew it was more liberal. I knew it was more artsy. I knew that it had more to offer me than what home had to offer me at the time. And the first few years were fantastic. I lived in Eugene. I live next door in Springfield now, they're essentially the same city. The only thing dividing them is a river. But things were really good for a while, and there was positivity, and there was conversations, and there was change, and people were waking up to the pharmaceutical industries, and we were waking up to government corruption and the things going on in the Middle East, and all of these various issues the liberals here were completely on board with. So you could have a conversation with anybody in town, and you open the door to so many different avenues. And post Trump election, the atmosphere definitely changed. I was at the protest on election night and a couple of them afterwards after he was elected, and you could see the change in people, but unfortunately I couldn't see the change within myself. And over time, ultimately, I feel like became radicalized into Antifa, into communist ideology, into supporting the riots into the streets, into attacking police officers, into public destruction. When I say we, I'm pointing at me too.
So you became part of Antifa.
Yep.
Wow. And you feel like you were radicalized on some level. Yeah.
100%. And, it's not like I was some sort of higher up going to some secret meetings and whatnot. Yeah. A lot of what it is here was you had your clique of friends, you go, you meet more people, you integrate, you get your orders. They tell you what to tell the cops and chants. Everyone's having conversations behind the scenes on the streets. And at least at first, everybody seemed to be on the same page. We were under this notion that we're going to fight fascists, and we all grew up with this thought in our head, well, if the Holocaust ever happened in our lifetime, well, then we would be smart enough to do something about it, which ultimately is what Black Lives Matter and these communist organizations preyed upon. And they took people like me who had backgrounds in having to deal with homophobia, having to see racism. I grew up in the heart of Bush country during his administration. I was only 4 when 9/11 happened, but my earliest memories was just straight up Muslim hate and straight up hate this, hate that, hate this. And ultimately what I see in the community now with where it's come is the liberals in Eugene and Springfield, Oregon are the exact same as the conservatives in Odessa, Texas that I grew up with. There is no difference other than the fact they're not religious. They've just replaced this religion with political ideology.
That's heavy, dude. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. So let me backtrack a little bit. How old are you?
I'm 26.
26. And are you, how do you identify yourself? Are you in the LGBT community?
Yeah, say I'm a gay man. I always kind of joke that I'm 95% because all the relationships I had with girls when I was younger, I was just a shitty kid. I didn't know how to treat women. And by the time I got out of high school and on to college, it was mainly just guys. So for the most part, I just try not to think about it. I've been with my husband now for about 7 or so years. So
Excellent. Sweet. That's awesome. Right on. So when you came to this, you are already identifying as a gay man, and did you find that there were a lot of gay people and trans people within Antifa?
vast majority.
Vast majority. Interesting. Okay. So I wanted to get that because I didn't understand how old you were, and I wanted to see like so. Do you think that they target a younger generation?
Specifically younger generations. I think the older generations had their due. At the beginning, you had a lot of the older Black community members, the older LGBT members. They came in, they said their piece. They lifted up the veil on things happening in our police department, happening with militias who, just the same as us, had extreme members who were getting a little too getting a little too wily, and they brought attention to that. And you know, one of the things I noticed is as the riots started to increase, as the violence started to increase, those people left. And all
Oh,
the Black Lives Matter people, the people that were originally there trying to put out a good message,
yeah.
they were replaced by communists. The communist hammer and sickle became more prevalent with every single protest, and the protest became increasingly more violent, which is kind of how communism works, right? Is you're only useful until you're not, and then the bigger
That's
fish
right.
comes in and eats you.
So let me say this. So BLM, you think started with a great cause for a great cause, right? You think the initial point of BLM was really to create awareness around racism and all of that stuff, right?
I want to say yes. I think on the social level, yes. As far as
Hmm.
people sitting at home on their phones, going through social media, George Floyd's murdered. We keep seeing all these cop videos come in left and right.
Hmm.
On the social aspect, there was good intentions, but the more that comes
Okay.
out for the Black Lives Matter organizers and founders, the more I
Yeah.
have to wonder what the initial intentions were to begin with.
I think a lot of people feel that way, to be honest with you, which happens sometimes. So now I want to get back. Now I want to get to Antifa. So do you find that BLM and Antifa are very similar in their organizational skills and what they're trying to sort of accomplish on some level?
I feel like that's hard to say. I feel like at times they became intertwined, but there was also times during the protests where you would have more people with the BLM signs, the fists, they had all their attire, all their symbols. And then you would have Antifa come in, and sometimes it would feel like the normal Antifa crowd. Other times it felt very unfamiliar.
Wow.
Where I
How
don't know.
about
On that one, it's hard to say. They definitely feed off each
okay?
other.
Sure. Okay, great. So here's another question I want to ask. How about color wise? Did you find that there were more white people involved in this sort of space, or did you find it to be very mixed?
The beginning seemed to be the majority was, maybe not the majority, but a large portion of the people were colored and mixed. And
Okay.
again, over time, as it filtered out, you left more and more white people, and you left the more extreme people of different minority groups who were just borderline criminal, to be frank.
Wow. Okay. So can you explain to me what Antifa, what the organization Antifa is about?
So Antifa, so they like to say, is just an ideology. You can pick it up for yourself and wear it like article of
Okay.
clothing, which is what me and my friends did and everybody else. What it really is it has its history rooted back before World War II. Actually, I took some notes on it here.
Okay, great. Great.
So it
Great.
began as anti-fascist action in 1932 as a paramilitary hand of the German Communist Party. And basically the intention was to overthrow the social liberal democratic governor of the Weimar Republic.
Oh, wow.
So during his rise to power, Hitler basically fed off the fear of communism and off a lot of what was happening and the violence. Hitler was a bad dude, throwing that out
Yep.
there.
Yep.
But he was pointing and being like, look, there's violence over here. Look, there's anarchy. Look, there's this.
Yeah.
And as Hitler rose to power, they just became increasingly more communistic, more sympathetic to Russia.
Okay.
But
I
after
see.
the war, the ideology was basically absorbed by the political atmosphere of East Germany. And
Okay.
essentially, they wanted to be as far away from Hitler as possible. So to have this group coming in purporting we're anti-fascist,
Right.
it's just kind of perfect. So eventually, they came in, and then East Germany established the Ministry for State Security, which then went on to establish the Stasi, where a lot of these anti-fascist individuals went to work, reporting on
Wow.
civilians, keeping tabs on everything. Um,
Right.
and after that, in 1961, in East Berlin, they basically erected the Anti-Fascist Defense Barrier, which is what we call the Berlin Wall nowadays.
Oh, wow. So Antifa comes from like basically the 30s.
Yep.
Oh my God, I actually didn't know that. I don't know if any of my listeners knew that too. So that's quite fast. So now I want to ask, so how did it now get planted in us? And when did you start? So you came from Texas and you moved to Oregon and you moved specifically to Eugene, right? Is that what that Springfield, Eugene area? And then so here's Antifa. Like I never even heard of, I'll be honest with you, Antifa before pretty much all this sort of trans and this kind of radicalization stuff started happening. So you get to Eugene and you're this young guy and what happened? Like you just started to hang out with these certain group of people?
Uh, I was hanging out with definitely people who were politically aligned with me, definitely left, very extreme left. I
Okay.
had years of drug and alcohol abuse.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
we were doing pills, psychedelics,
Yeah.
ketamine, anything you can get your
Wow.
hands on minus meth and heroin.
Wow. Okay.
So we are all just kind of losing our minds together. And one of the
Wow.
things I've noticed about Eugene is people tend to move in waves.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
I guess over time, at the beginning, I was the one looking for it. I was the one like, oh, I heard you had a friend in Antifa. What's that about? Can I meet them? Yada, yada, yada. And I just kept digging and digging and digging. And then ultimately the protest popped off. I was like, I'm going to be at every single one that I can possibly be at because the media is clearly not reporting what's happening correctly on so many of these issues.
Okay.
Simultaneously, you have the cognitive dissonance of the media giving you marching orders. So
Yeah.
it's a very
Yeah.
confusing place to be in.
Wow, it's so fascinating, and I can see how that could easily, especially if you're in a mood or you're in a thing, and Antifa just seems like, because it is pretty extreme, and so I can see how it can like pull people in who are angry or disconnected or doing drugs or thinking the whole government here sucks and America's insane. I could see it all. I mean, I was that young guy back in the day, so it's targeting a very specific group of young people like yourself who are a little bit not so focused maybe and angry and easily influenced. Did you find yourself to be easily sort of swayed to think this way?
Yeah, which is interesting because when I was younger, I was definitely more rebellious, foaming at the mouth. But
Hmm.
then my
Hmm.
mom sent me to live with my father when I was 15, and
Hmm.
I was basically locked down for 3 years in a psychologically and sometimes physically abusive situation. And when I got out of that, I felt free,
Hmm.
and I felt free up until again the protests started happening and the social atmosphere and climate starts to change a little bit,
Hmm.
and suddenly these friends are becoming my father. They're exhibiting what I think Joshua Slocum would call cluster B personality dynamics,
Okay.
which is definitely something that I saw in my father, that and I don't think a lot of them intentionally meant to do it, but they keep you in this place of walking on eggshells to where you can't show anyone a music video, you can't talk about certain news stories, but these are still your friends and they're still really traumatized and you're just coming from different perspectives and you're just still trying to go along with them, and then you wind up going along with them too far until you've gotten yourself into a very messy situation, because ultimately what this all relies on in my understanding is weaponized empathy.
Wow. So now I see what's happening here. I mean, I kind of already had this thought because how are these kids? Now, here's the other thing I was sort of noticing with Antifa. There's a lot of trans people.
Oh yeah, we have Trantifa in Portland now.
Trantifa. What
Yep.
the heck is so tell me, oh my God. I just can't even stand it, dude. So what is Trantifa's deal? Like what are they mad about?
I just assume, kind of like us, anything that the news tells them to be mad about. Anti-gay legislation, which, according to the state or the country of Canada, there's an emergency going on down here. We're all being hunted down. I didn't know about that, but
Me neither, dude. That's big news. Again, I'm going to say, like, I believe these organizations are really targeting angry young people, which, we've all been there. I was there, dude. I'm 60 now, but I was that angry young kid. You're like, they're targeting a very specific group of people. And I feel like that's the dangerous part, right? Because you can easily suck these kids and everyone's bad, everyone's angry at you, no one likes trans people. There's a genocide happening. Like it gives them, I think, a purpose. Did you feel like that this was like something that gave you a purpose?
Yeah, and I considered myself not to be Christian and religious, but again, you're doing psychedelics all the time. You have to have some sort of spiritual understanding or something going on, even if you're
Yeah,
not listening to it.
yeah.
And I believe, as many of the Christians do, as many of the other faiths, that whether you want to call it rapture, whether you want to call it judgment, whether you want to call it a 3D, 5D paradigm shift, whatever the hell you want to call it, there is some sort of awakening happening in this world right now, in this
Hmm.
country, as a
Totally.
leader of the free world, or
Yep.
rather, or we should be leading the free world. There's there's a lot of energy happening here. There is some sort of
Sure.
shift that is just, it can't be stopped, and that's why they're scared. I got off on a little tangent. I don't remember what the initial question was. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. It's okay because this is so fascinating to me, and also there's just a lot going. I can't even imagine. So tell me. So here you are in Antifa, and you're angry, and so what are the? Tell me some of the things you guys would go out to do. Like just one. Let's say one night in Antifa. What would that be?
On a standard night before it got violent, it would be going through the streets. It would be taking notes on all the conservatives, who has an American flag, who has a Gladstone flag, who has a Confederate patch, letting some of the people
Wow.
know, hey, this group is over here. Hey, this person is suspicious. And that's
Wow.
ultimately one of the things that led to the chaos here. Is
Okay.
it's odd to say Antifa was more stable until people got paranoid and everybody fueled into that
Oh.
paranoia. So it's not like we have one Antifa in this area. We have like 10 or 15. Like they
Oh, so
all
there's
just splintered off.
I see. So then it becomes more, it's not Antifa, it becomes sort of pocket, like everyone has their own sort of Antifa unit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happened in the Middle East. You get all these protester groups and they just start going to the embassies and they start going to all these different places and then it
Yeah,
starts peaceful and then it
yeah.
gets violent and then people disagree and then it fractures out and some of those
Fracturing.
people go on to be extremists. Some of those people try to get the hell out of the country. Everyone just kind of picks their own way at that point because it's too chaotic
Wow.
to handle.
So that's what happened with Antifa then. You're saying it's like it started splintering because some people became more radicalized as more of others just were kind of maybe trying to point out things.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
100%.
So you do you feel like you got more radicalized?
Absolutely. And simultaneously, and the same could be said for a lot of people out there, my drinking got worse. My
Okay,
drug use
great.
got worse.
Yeah.
Like so
No.
many people out there intoxicated.
That's what
And it,
I can see it. You know, I used to be a total alcoholic drug addict. I can see that energy, right? That real like not caring and being, you know, because when you're more messed up, the less your inhibitions like just go out the window. You'll do anything on so.
yeah,
Was that encouraged drug usage or drinking?
definitely by individuals and friend groups. But then, you got the drug dealers going out there and they're using that to do what they're going to do. Large crowds, no one's looking. The police are busy. We're all smoking pot. It's Oregon. So
Yeah,
I
but I
guess
don't
smoke
even
pot
think
with
of
us.
pot.
But
Yeah, pot I don't think of as a drug, you know. I think more stuff like even drinking's gnarly. You can become very angry and disconnected and psychedelics, you know, if you're using stuff in the wrong way, it could be very negative. I mean, you can have a glass of wine, you can have two bottles of wine, totally different, right? So wow, dude, this is so fascinating. Now I want to know so here you are radicalized and tell me because your intentions getting into Antifa were not being a radicalized. You saw something that you felt like you wanted to be a part of because you saw bad things happening. Is that right?
yeah, I think a large part of it for me was, like I said, I grew up with all these conservatives and people who were
Yeah.
so quick to kiss the ass of the government despite
Hmm.
everything they were doing, like
Hmm.
not getting anything from them, waging war. And I thought, wow, all these people are finally waking up. If I can join this movement and I can get my family and friends to see what I've been
Right.
seeing this entire time, then we can all march against them together.
Right. That's right. So I mean, so for me that just seems very normal, and I see you see something. It's not radicalized at this point. So now you're starting to get more radicalized. So now I want to hear. Give me a night that you go out when it's really radicalized, when it starts becoming more violent.
Yeah. Well, there was definitely violence leading up to it, but
Okay.
I'll give
Okay.
you one day, and it starts in the day and it ends in the evening, and it's
Okay.
a little lengthy. So bear with me, and I'll try not to get shaky because it's a story that I would tell every single day, multiple times a day for a year or two until I sought therapy. And the day I sought therapy, I didn't say anything about it for months.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I mean, if it's too much, you don't have
No,
to.
no,
Okay.
no. It's a large reason that I
Okay.
want to because
Okay.
for as much as I'm here to complain about Antifa, the police were
Mhm.
also at fault. The militias were also at fault.
Mhm.
My part there was I wanted to hold them accountable. And obviously
Okay.
that's not what happened. We went there to hold the police accountable and the
Mhm.
right. All we could have really done, like the LGBT community needs to do right now, is to just focus on ourselves.
That's
But
right.
in this instance, it started earlier in the day. I believe that the march began at the federal courthouse, and we were going to march around downtown Eugene, Oregon, go around
Mhm.
the bus station, and then we were going to basically loop back around and meet back up. So we had a couple speakers there who were telling their stories, mostly African American older people who were like, yeah, this was my experience with EPD. One woman was like, I was raped and beaten. Others were like, I was borderline tortured. We had a guy here named Isaiah Wagner who ran for mayor, and he's out there being like, I don't want to be out here. I got kids at home. This is nonsense. We got to figure this out so we can put it to an end.
Mhm.
A very rational and strong speaker who later wound up running for mayor. And so we start the march, and one of the things that immediately became obvious was there were white supremacists, there were Proud Boys. I consider those two things very different
Sure.
now. There were American flags. There was all of the things. You had the Trumpers versus the left, or so it felt like. I understand now it's a little more nuanced, but
Mhm.
none of the guns from the police officers were trained on us. They had the cops following us. They had weapons trained on us. We had snipers on the roofs all over downtown, and you could see sniper rifles like pointed at you. Like they were keeping an eye, and so of course I'm getting freaked out. I'm like, why the hell are they looking at us and not them? So we basically get around, and we're getting pretty close to the federal courthouse, and you've got the road is packed. You have both sides of the sidewalk are completely packed, and suddenly we hear screaming. And I turn around, and this is happening like a couple yards away from me. There's a black armored SUV that comes through the crowd, almost hitting people to get in. Like he's speeding in, not giving a shit, and people are jumping. And then he pulls out, he pulls into the middle of the crowd immediately, gets out of the car, slams his door, and brandishes an AR-15 and begins to point at the crowd. At this point, he's probably less than 10 feet away from me.
Oh my God.
And he's screaming every dirty word in the home. Go home, you dirty this. Fuck you, you dirty little all the things. And he's just pointing in people's faces and getting crazy. And we're all freaking the fuck out because we think there's about to be a shooting. And the guy I mentioned earlier, Isaiah Wagner, the man who ran for mayor in Eugene, he stepped up. He was right there apparently, and he stood. This big old 6 foot tall, buff ass black dude stood in front of this little redneck with his AR-15, gun pointed at his chest, gun pointed at his head, and every time he tried to swing it around, he stood right in front of the goddamn barrel.
Wow.
And he kept telling us, go. He's trying to start something. He wants a reason to pull the trigger. Do not do anything. And he was blocking us from coming at him.
Wow.
And I remember like starting to shuffle away because my husband and my friend Kellen and a couple of my other friends were here and or were there, and I'm like, we got to go. And I remember we got down to this little store up the road, and there was these two guys on a bike, and I'm like, you got to go. There's a guy with an AR-15. He might start shooting any second. And these two guys, I can't decide whether it was ballsy or stupid, but these two wooks on their bike just look at each other, and they're like, fuck that. And they just take a bats out of their backpacks, and they go and charge the motherfucker. So at that point, I'm like, okay, now we're running.
Yep. Good move.
Yeah. So that all went down, and then as we got closer to the federal courthouse, the cops and agents from Portland, police from all over the state, probably even from out of state. I know at this time the federal government, I think they were prohibited from coming into the state of Oregon. There was a lot of debate over that, but there's a parking lot by the federal courthouse, and all the cars come in, all the cops come out, and I shit you not, I see hundreds, if not thousands, of rifles, pistols, grenades, tear gas canisters, and they're lining them up organized in every single parking space across this giant ass lot. And we're just all looking at each other, and we're like, something insane is about to fucking happen. They're showing us something. This is a warning.
That's right.
So we went home, and my dumbass was like, well, and I'm glad I did it because I wouldn't have the perspective I do now. But I was like, I'm going there tonight. And my friends were like, don't do it. I'm like, no, fuck this. I need to see what happens for my own eyes. So I believe it was that night they actually enacted a COVID lockdown. So this was May 30th, I believe. And on May 29th of that year was when Antifa stormed Washington, D.C., set the White House lawn on fire, and Trump was in the bunker. So all over the country, we were getting COVID lockdowns because COVID creeps at night. Definitely not any protesters.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so they had it set up to where we have a little Whole Foods downtown, and everywhere from a certain perimeter of downtown to the edge of the Whole Foods, that was going to be under lockdown, and you would face a $500 fines, potential jail time. Mm-hmm. And of course, the whole town, the right and the left, said, fuck that, you're not going to lock us down over COVID. We know it's not for COVID.
Right.
But I got there a little bit later. I got there after the chaos started, and we went to go meet one of my friends, and as soon as she came around the corner, she's crying and she's red in the face and she's scuffed up and she's like, we have to get the hell out of here right now. And we're like, what are you talking about? She's like, don't ask questions, just fucking go right fucking now, just fucking go. And right behind her there was dozens of armored vehicles, police trucks. Wow. You had the Humvees with the LRAD systems on them, which is the sonic weapons basically, and it was a military parade that was following behind us. And at the time, it was 11:57. And and this is also an important note I want to mention. Yeah. The order was not this was not done by the mayor. Okay. The order was essentially done by, find it here. Mm-hmm. I'm already shaking from talking about this shit.
Wow.
So our mayor at the time was Lucy Vinnis. Wow. She was out of her office, apparently. I think it was vacation or sick leave or something. So they gave it to the Eugene manager, Sarah Mettery. Mm-hmm. So the city manager shut us down, broke constitutional law, told us to stay in our fucking homes.
All under the guise of COVID?
All under the guise of COVID.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
yeah,
we turn around, we turn the corner, and we hear someone on the bullhorn, and he's like, you have 3 minutes to return to your homes, or essentially you will be fired upon. And you may be placed under arrest. I can't remember what it was verbatim, but we had 3 freaking minutes. It took us 15 minutes to walk there. I didn't take my car. I lived over near the U of O campus at the time. So 3 minutes, and every single group that's splintering off. Some people went down this road. Some people went down this road. Some people went down this road. Every single one of them, part of the parade, broke off and followed them. So 3 minutes to get to your home, 2 minutes to get to your home, 1 minute to get to your home, 30 seconds, 5, 4, and then the LRAD, which is right behind me a couple yards, goes off. And if you've never heard of LRAD, you should look it up. It's sonic weaponry. Your eardrums, it creates a sense of panic. I've never heard a sound like that in my life. I don't want to ever hear it again. But I just immediately, I'm like, go, go, go. And then as soon as the LRAD starts, you hear pop, 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 and screams. And all of a sudden there's tear gas canisters flying around. I take out my friend. She falls to the ground. She like scrapes the skin back on the palm of her hand. I'm trying to help her up so I can get her running. And essentially it just became a full on fucking attack from every angle. And we're trying to put together which direction to go. And explosions, screams, pop, smoke going off in the distance. You didn't even know the cops were up there yet. So we're going through backyards. We're going through alleyways. We're doing whatever we can to get the hell away. And at one point, we get into the middle of an alleyway between all these parking garages, and it's echoing. I feel like I'm in the Middle East, like I'm watching some sort of war footage. It's just kids screaming and men yelling and it's terror. And
well, that's what they wanted. They wanted to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
No, 100%.
But there had already been prior protests before this, right? Antifa was already kind of creating a lot of stuff there. Am I not right? So because I want to know why it escalated to this. They wouldn't just do this. There must have been stuff going on already there that created, this military action towards Antifa. Am I right?
Oh, definitely. And I think it was the sour grapes in the batch that spoiled it for everybody else. But of course, we all spoiled with them.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And at the time,
I want to get that picture because they wouldn't just do this, right? Antifa's already been tearing apart, Portland and doing stuff. So something made it switch there where they weren't going to play this game anymore, and they were going to come at you with full force military action.
Yeah, but the thing is, too, the holding accountable of Antifa was very light. And the reason for that is the police in Oregon even came out and they're like, for every single one we arrest, they become a martyr. They raise a couple $1,000s,
That's
they get
right.
themselves bailed out, and then they
That's
bail
right.
someone else out.
That's right. I totally agree with that. That's right. How do we hold people? So I'm sorry to cut you off. I just kind of
No,
wanted to
you're
get
fine.
that picture there. So now you're all running, and then what happens? So you disperse. You finally get home, and then like that was that. Was it what was there any action taken from any government space or anywhere that said what the government just did to you people was a bad thing? Was anybody ever held accountable for this?
Nope. And actually, just to finish off the last little bit of the story, I'm
Yeah,
not cutting you off.
yeah, no, yeah,
Because this is where it starts to get fucked. So, like,
okay.
me and my two friends are in the alleyway, and as soon as we leave, there's a gray silver unmarked vehicle that follows us. We
Okay.
weren't sure if it was militia. We weren't sure if it was the police. It
Mm.
followed us for about 4 or 5 blocks as we tried to run home and run us down. So we would
Wow.
try to cross the street, and they would be swerving in and out like this, and they'd be trying to block our way. And the only thing that got them to stop, God bless these people, was these people on the second floor of an apartment building who started shining their flashlights down and screaming. They're like, "Get your phone out. Get your phone out right now. We have a camera on you. Get the phone on them now." And one of my
Wow.
friends, she's got balls of steel. She went up right up to the window and put the camera up, and they immediately went off. And then they peeled into the line with the other officers. But again, the officers were mixed with militia vehicles, so it was really hard to tell.
Yeah, well, who was who, right? So it's hard to tell
Mhm.
who was militia and who was actual police.
Yeah. And then I got a block up the road, and I was about a block from my home, and these cops rolled down the window, and one of them had a gun pointed right at my fucking face.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, dude, I live right there. I had my hands in the air. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
done. I'm going home. They're like, you need to go now. I'm like, I am. And I'm looking around, and the church across the street from me, filled with tear gas. People are still getting gunned down. In the midst of my running away while someone was trying to run me over, I looked over at our corner store, Hilliard Market, and there was these little kids just running down like they couldn't have been more than 14, 15. And out of one of these armored vehicles, the cops are hanging out of it like there's some sort of Colombian gangsters, and they're shooting tear gas canisters right into the backs of these kids.
Whoa. So basically the things that were being shot were tear gas. It wasn't actual were we using rubber bullets by any chance, or just tear gas?
Rubber bullets for sure. And this is the thing about the tear gas that most people don't realize. So I think
Yeah.
it was back during Occupy, the French government was supplying us with tear gas. During
Uh-huh.
Occupy, they told us no because of the response that was being had.
Mhm.
Most of the tear gas canister rounds that you see fired in the news or during these protests, they're
Yeah.
expired, which makes them toxic chemical agents. So one thing that
Oh
was
my God.
happening, you have all these women and you have all these trans people and all these people on hormones. The toxins from the tear gas canisters were fucking with their menstrual cycles, where some girls were bleeding for 3 to 4 weeks on end and having to go to the hospital
Oh, I
and
can't even
developing
imagine.
cysts.
Yeah, of course. There's probably long-term crap that's going to come. Now, to be play devil's advocate here, and not that I'm okay with this kind of stuff on both sides. I'm not. I live in a democracy. I live in America. We are allowed to have peaceful protests. We are allowed to talk about things that we disagree with. What we aren't allowed to do is go burn down people's buildings. Or so that's my what I see in Antifa is destruction. I don't see peaceful protests. I see destruction. And then that takes it to a whole other level. That's just my opinion of what I see. And now I'm seeing that and I understand why we sort of had to get into a space of pushing back on Antifa. But you were fully involved in this at this point, right? You were full on Antifa person.
Oh yeah, wore the flags, wore the mask. Anytime a cop would come into the neighborhood, me and a lot of our neighbors, we had the same mentality. We would try to intimidate the police. We'd flip them off. You
See,
know, I'm a juggalo. They have a song called "I Fucked a Cop," and I remember sitting on the balcony, drunk off my ass, with an oldie in my hand, smoking a cigarette. And there was this woman officer down there,
mhm,
and I'm just blaring this song as fucking loud as I can, and I'm just trying to intimidate her.
that's right.
And that's
That's
something
right.
that my father would do. That's something that
Okay.
my father was a very hateful individual, very
Okay.
violent,
Hmm.
and they just turn you into the same thing you're trying to fight. You
Wow,
become a
really
monster.
appreciate you saying that. No, it's really important what you're saying because I think it gives us another perspective of how a young person like you could get sucked into this and become angry and anti-government, anti-police, anti anything that has a structure. And you have to have structure or everything will fall apart, whether you like it or not. Whether you like the police or not, not all police are good. They're not, and not all Antifa members are good. I mean, you might have a different, so that's the problem for me. Nothing is black and white, but what are your intentions? So the intentions that I see coming from Trantifa and these radicalized Antifa is to try to tear apart our democracy. Was that the sort of, what is the underlying thing that Antifa wants to accomplish? I guess I'm asking.
Honestly, they don't know. Their role is simply to be the destroyer. They are not the ones who are going to come in and do the destruction. The bigger fish is going to come in. They're going to take over the protest one day. They're going to become the paramilitaries. They're going to be the ones running
That's
things.
right. That's
And
right.
there's this lady, and I think she was featured on the Radical Center or Gender a Wider Lens, or maybe both. But her
Okay.
name is Julie Bueling, and she studied communism because she was very interested in what communism did to the church and how it played its
Yeah.
part in going against
Yeah.
religion. But she
Yeah.
made this chart, and it's very, very crude because I forgot to draw it up until the last second before I got on the video with you, so I
Okay.
apologize.
That's
But
all
I feel
right.
like she got it pretty damn well. It was essentially this at the
Four
bottom of
levels of
that.
communism. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
you got the dupes,
I
and
see.
then you got
Okay.
the communist sympathizers. You
Okay.
got the avowed communists, and then you have the puppet masters and the money bags. And the people at the top don't even necessarily have to be communists; they just need to use it to their agenda, like the Biden administration.
Wow. It's so scary what's going on. Oh my God. People don't understand. Our democracy is important. You would never be able to do the things you do here. Even Antifa wouldn't be able to exist if it wasn't for democracy. I don't understand, but we're targeting youth, and we're targeting the youth to say, oh, democracy and capitalism are the devil. And so then you just get so sucked into it. And then this stuff, it's so dangerous, my friend. It's so incredibly, I hate that there's a Trantifa. I hate it because those people don't understand what we have as trans people is so amazing. Go live in another country and try to be trans. They have no idea the freedom they have to live as trans and what they get. It's just bizarre to me. So it's upsetting to me also as an older trans person who has a lot. I have a lot in this country and I value it a lot, especially as a transsexual person. So here you are, and you're also gay. Were there a lot of, I think I asked you that earlier. You said there was a lot of gay and trans people attached to it.
Yeah, and that's also the area. This area, I swear to God, is 95% LGBT. Like
That's true.
everyone's gay or
That's
some
true.
form, and
Or
even the straight
trans.
people, you learn they're a little bit gay. Or trans, yeah. Like every time I go out, I see at least 20 trans people. So
It's so crazy, dude. I don't know what. Go to San Francisco. Like literally, the whole city is trans. It's
oh,
so
thank you. I'm
weird.
fine.
Right on. Me too, dude. And I'm never going. So now, okay. So wow, this is so crazy. I want to know why. What was the catalyst for you to decide that you shouldn't be with Antifa? What was it?
Well, the events and what I saw, to be sure, but I'm also somebody who takes my friendships very seriously, and I
Mm.
keep my circle very small. And I had really good friends who were really important to me and really close to me, who, when we started this, were very, even keeled, might have had extreme views, but we're still just, they're just normal fucking people. And
Mhm.
over time, they just, kind of like me, they lost it. But some of these people just never came back, and some of them I don't think ever can, will, or are willing to come back.
You mean they got sucked into the ideology?
The
And
ideology, and I think a big part for me too was like just going into psychology videos and understanding narcissism and understanding groupthink and all
oh,
these patterns. And the more I
oh,
began listening to these therapists, I was like, holy shit, that's this person, or this person, or that's this person.
oh.
And realizing that I'm being abused and manipulated, and like I'm this token gay guy in the group who, yeah, see, I'm like he's gay, therefore we're all good, except for when the gay man starts to speak out and the gay man doesn't start to agree. then I'm just cis and white again.
It's so true, dude. They totally pick and choose what parts of you are good for them. But that's the scary part of these organizations. And also it's the scary part of what I see happening with our community. You're either a good trans or you're a bad trans. You're either a good gay or a bad gay. If you don't get on board with being queer and all of that, you're part of the problem to our community. That's the scary part. I'm a bad tranny for these people because I will not get on board with this. I'm a traitor. I'm all of these crazy things they like to say. But you aren't. You're somebody who woke up. So you started waking up and you started saying, what am I doing?
Yeah, and it got really intense. And one of my good friends was, they were with me at a lot of the protests, and they brought the trans with them. They turned
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter into trans Black Lives Matter, so they had to come and transify everything.
Wow.
And they were trying to kind of coach my mind into what I was doing wrong, into my implicit biases, and how I shouldn't listen to this or I shouldn't say these certain things.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
this friend was a sex worker, which I fully admire. I
Okay.
tattoo. That's can be pretty underground. That's
Sure.
something you really gotta put together. You gotta know what you're doing. And
Yep. Yep.
this friend, she did that, and she had all the business ins and outs. And unlike a lot of these OnlyFans girls that I saw, I was like, "You're putting together a solid freaking business. I'm here to support you."
Mhm.
And she took that level of support to be like, "Oh, you're gonna support me here," and tried ultimately to coerce me into being the voice of a FinDom scheme, in
Oh
which I could
no.
clearly be more aggressive and they could just be the pictures and all that, and then I could fucking yell at these men and I could degrade them, and then I could make big bucks. And from the get-go, I was like, look, after a while of pushing it, I definitely started kink shaming, but I was like, look, this just sounds like something these guys need therapy for. I don't think I'd rather tattoo, like.
Hilarious.
But yeah, and it
Wow.
became so prevalent. But like the thing is, the more I tried to get out of that and the more I tried to explain what I felt was wrong with it, the more that came down to my political beliefs. Well, are you
Right.
anti-sex worker, or why are you kink shaming, or it's okay because of this, or it's legal because of this? And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really care what makes it ethical or legal. I am kind of put off by it, and you can do you,
That's
girl.
right.
You do you.
Right
But
on. Right on. That's not kink shaming. That's saying I don't want to do it, and it's go ahead and do your own thing. I was all in that space, and I hate when they start using all these words, kink shaming, why everything's shaming. No, I just don't want to do it, and I don't see any value in it. If this guy wants to do it, then that's. But you see how they do that? That's gaslighting, by the way. You
yep.
know? Yeah.
And then the same person, at the same time, I was starting to take an interest in why is pedophilia getting into the community. So I was listening to people like Alan Walker and the stuff coming out of
Oh
the John
God.
Hopkins Institute.
Oh God.
So I was becoming familiar with the language, and then I noticed that she started using that language.
Oh my God. You're kidding me.
Yeah,
Holy
and then I got a
shit.
lecture one day because admittedly I was fired up. I saw some pedophile story, and I'm just like, fuck these motherfuckers. They deserve the death penalty, yada, yada, yada. I'm going off. And then she's like, well, it's a sexual attraction you can't help. And speaking as a sex worker, I would much have rather someone have that attraction have sex with me than have sex with a child.
What are these people insane? What does that have to do with sex work? First off, keep those two separate. Are you insane? This is why people hate us because these weirdos are saying weirdo stuff about kids and like,
Mm-hmm.
nope, sorry, nope, just off the table. Shut up. And you can't recall it. You can't rename it MAPS, and that makes it all normalized. Like, what are you talking about, people? It's sick, dude. These are kids. What?
Yeah.
Oh
And
man.
and it's just and it's horrible. And you watch all these people, and now they create this environment where we can't talk about vaccines, we can't talk about detransitioners, we can't talk
That's
about
right.
corruption in the Biden administration. And
That's right.
meanwhile, my friends are suffering.
That's
Like
right.
the people in my life who were forced to take the vaccine or lose their job are suffering. The person in my life who came out as a detransitioner who can't get the care that they need now is fucking suffering. But to
Dude, yeah.
them, that person's just a turf or a traitor.
Oh no,
And
they say
it
kill.
just,
They literally are like kill detransitioner. They're so insane. No, no, no. They're all fake. These are fake trans people. If they actually cared about this community, they would care a lot about detransitioners. Dude, this is only the tip of the iceberg. We are going to have thousands of these detrans kids before this is
mhm,
over. I mean, it's
yep,
sick, and that's this community that's so full of crap. If you say something outside of the whole, that's why to me it's an ideology. It's not a
yeah,
community. Yeah.
100%. And like, and I want to go into my friend Kellen for a minute, if that's
Okay, yeah,
okay.
please do. Please
Because
do.
this is what I was telling my friends, and it's because of people like you raising the alarm. I've been telling people, I'm like, look, I know you don't get it right now. I know it
Mhm.
seems like, because I'm on this every day. I wake up in the morning, I'm watching Buck Angel, I'm watching Blair White, I'm watching Ariel
Right on.
Scarcella. Like, I'm watching all of y'all. I
Right
love
on.
you guys. So I'm really trying to bring attention because everyone in my life is gay, trans, or Mexican.
Okay, right
So
on.
like we're all affected by this bullshit, and I've told them that you're gonna know more, if not just as many detransitioners as you do trans people, and most of the trans people in your life now are not going to be trans in 10 years. Full stop. I'm sorry, that's an uncomfortable statement.
It's true.
It's reality.
Yeah.
And I'd been going on this for a minute with my friend Kellen, and he just texted me one day, and he's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind." And admittedly, I was like, "Fuck, what if I've been on this trans subject too hard? What if I pissed him off?" And he came over and talked to me, and he had a suicide attempt a couple months back. And he didn't wind up going through with it, thankfully. He went to the top of the cliff, looked down, and said, "Shit, this might hurt. I don't know if it's worth it." And thank God he fucking did that, because I would have lost my best friend.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, dude. Is he trans? Is he a trans guy?
Was. So that's what I learned in the course of this conversation. Is he told me that so he got his mastectomy at age 21. He had done therapy for 10 years prior, so he went the proper course. He had an actual therapist, not a gender therapist. Right. However, he got involved. I think it was the Gender Health Clinic in Sacramento, if I'm not mistaken.
There's so many of those. You couldn't even do. There's like thousands of them now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he went to the clinic in Sacramento, and what happened?
They basically told him, it looks like you could be trans, because he went on YouTube, saw some YouTubers, and was like, this kind of fits. His father at age 4 committed suicide.
Oh no!
And there was so much of this family trauma, essentially, that he felt like he needed to step in those shoes, which is something that I've noticed with probably 90% of my trans friends is father's either gone or dead.
Wow, interesting. And are most of those people female to male transsexuals?
For the most part, yes.
That's fascinating. So the absence of the dad might play a part in what's happening.
I definitely think so. And so he's like, tell me that. And at age 21, he gets his mastectomy, and within 2 to 3 months, gender dysphoria, poof, gone.
Yeah.
And
it's body dysmorphia. It's not necessarily gender dysmorphia.
Yeah, and also at age 21, he got diagnosed with BPD. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, but see, they're not diagnosing these kids with the other things that are going on. So he gets diagnosed trans in 2 seconds. Then he has his breast removed. Then he starts getting these other diagnoses after he did this irreversible surgery. By the way, you can't get your boobs back. Done. So sorry, go on. So now gets diagnosed with BPD or
BPD, borderline personality disorder.
Oh, borderline personality. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
And so basically after that, it went away. And one of the things he mentioned was that he got house calls multiple times a day, and the doctors were like, "Hey, need more painkillers? Need more opioids? You doing good?" And every single time he's like, I think I'm good. I don't want to get hooked on drugs or anything like that. He took the smart choice, but nonetheless, every day, "Hey, you need more drugs? Hey, you need more drugs?"
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just horrible. And he even went back to the testosterone for a little bit because he was having doubts again, and he was confused and not searching for the answer. And then trans TikTok's here, and trans TikTok says, "Oh, maybe I can step back into this," and was on and off for a minute, and now he's officially been off it about 7 or 8 months for good.
My God, how is he doing? How tell me how old is he now?
Kellen is 24.
So he's still a kid. So he's 24. He went on testosterone, I think you said around 21 or something like that. Got top surgery. So from 21 to 24, he's dealing with all of this on-off testosterone, has his breasts removed, gets for BPD, and now he decided that it wasn't for him. And now he's detransitioning at 24.
Yes.
So he's going back to living as a female?
So I asked him this last night because he was over here hanging out, and I said, "Would you officially take on the label detransitioner?" Because admittedly, that's kind of what I've been telling people. And he's like, no, I think I'm done with the labels. He's like, some people call me she, some people call me he. I asked a couple weeks back, I'm like, do you want me to change the pronoun for you? And he's like, no, this is what you know me as.
Okay,
So he
I
just
see
doesn't
that.
care, which is honestly a sign of healing for me. Is he's just like, look, this isn't plaguing me anymore. I don't give a
That's
shit.
right.
One of the
That's
things he
right.
did immediately was picked up boxing. Now he's talking about going to train in Thailand here in the next year or two, and he's sparring with other guys, biological men. They're allowing it. He's beating their ass.
You
Like,
know what I think? I think a lot of these kids, they get so traumatized by by this community is so forceful, and like you have to be this way. And I feel like somehow this young guy got sucked into this ideology part of it, and it became too overwhelming because he had to put up this charade on some level. You don't get to be the dude that you want to be. You have to be all these other things now when you're trans, or you're not trans enough, right? And so I think that's what I'm seeing, because I think it's interesting how he's very comfortable with himself right now, and he doesn't care about his pronouns. You see, he took off the facade. It's a facade that these young people are being taught, that you have to do this, you have to do your pronouns, you have to all these things, but it's not true. You have to figure out yourself and your own way of being, and it sounds like he's now probably going to have a more comfortable transition, or whatever you want to call it at this point, because he's not all sucked into the ideology of what trans is on some level. So I also I don't really necessarily think of him as a D-trans, but I see what you're getting at. So now your friend is D-transing. How many more of your friends do you see this happening to?
I would be lying if I didn't say there's a couple people in my mind who I have concerns about. One
Yeah.
of them definitely being my little brother-in-law, who's currently on testosterone at age 16. We've seen some
Oh
red flags.
no. No,
Yeah.
at 16? Oh
And I
god.
had a part to play in that, because whenever this kid came out as trans a few years ago, my mother-in-law was asking me and my husband, because we're gay, so therefore at the time we have the authority in the matter. We should know what to
Yep,
do about this.
yep,
And we thought we did. Send
yep.
him to the gender clinic.
Oh gosh. Yep. It doesn't matter. You didn't do anything wrong. You did what you were taught to do. That's what they're teaching us to say to any young person that says I'm trans. Go to the clinic and get testosterone. We're not teaching them I'm like, find a therapist, not an affirmation therapist, not an LGBTQ therapist, a therapist, just a
Mm-hmm.
normal everyday what's going on with you kiddo therapist. That's
Yeah,
what
and
these
that's what I've been
guys.
telling him.
That's right. That's what he needs. Not one of those other ones who will just affirm how he feels. So now he's 16. Oh, gosh. On to when did he start? Like
I want to
how long?
say about a year ago or so.
So
And
yeah. Wow. Holy crap.
yeah, and we had conversations with his mom about it. And at first, we were the ones who shut her down, because anytime she's like, well, what if this kid's just a lesbian or just autistic? We're like, no, that's not how you think about this. This is gender
Yeah.
dysphoria.
Yeah.
This is not how
Yeah.
you handle this situation. Don't say things like that. So we put her in this box where she's like, okay, well, I'm older. I'm working all the time. I'm just a lady from the 70s. The world is changing so fucking quick. All I can really do is love and support my child. And we've been living with her now for probably about 7 or 8 months, because our rent increased.
Okay.
So we're living here to save up to move to Texas, because it makes things
Okay.
easier.
Yeah. Sure.
So essentially, this kid's coming from an art school that we have here in Springfield, where the kids are identifying as animals. They're all non-binary. The whole fucking school's trans. They all go out of school for the protest, and
What?
it's just insanity. Yeah,
Wait.
it's
Is this is this for high school kids, or
yeah. This is an art school for high
for
school.
like? Oh my god, they're letting them identify as animals. Like that's normal.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law used to have this nickname Sharky, right? Because my
Uh huh.
brother-in-law really liked sharks,
Uh huh.
and had this crazy ex who, after the breakup, my brother-in-law is just this anxious little kid who's just like,
Mhm.
this girl's a little crazy. I don't want to deal with it. And of course, this little girl's just traumatized. So how does this
Yeah.
little girl handle her trauma? I'm now shark self. I demand shark self from my parents. I demand shark self from the school. And guess what? The school freaking goes with it.
What? The fact that we're letting a kid say, first off, I demand. Secondly, playing along with this nonsense as if it's healthy. It's so destructive. It's so destructive. You know, I am a dad, dude. I have an 11-year-old, and I'm like, no, 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 no. You think I affirm everything that kid says? No, far from it. But the fact that an actual school system is doing this is this a government funded school? Is it a state funded school system, or is it a private school?
I
Do you
don't know, but
know?
it's definitely Democratic funded. You walk around that school and there's rainbow flags everywhere, and
Oh
it's
my
it's
god!
just the
Oh my
fist,
god!
it's the whole nine yards.
You see how that's all now been equated with, I'm an actual Democrat, and I do not believe in any, I'm a liberal. I do not believe in any of this. Here's the problem. Now me as a liberal and a Democrat, which I'm pretty sure I'm probably leaving that party. But that being said, now we're all looked at like crazy woke wingnut people. And that's not fair, right? It's just not fair to our party because we're not all on board with this. But it looks like
Yeah.
it's coming from that space.
Well, and the thing is too, they want all the next generation to be on board with this. This is the whole part of the
Why?
communist takeover.
That's the
So,
communist takeover. So that
like,
that basically they're feeding this to the young generation so that when they come up, they're wow, dude. Oh
and
my
that's the
god.
four stages of communist plot to take over America from Yuri Bezimov. He's the guy who came out in the 80s from the KGB and was like, yeah, there's
Yeah,
a plan to take over America. Here it is.
yeah.
And the four stages are demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. We're currently in the normalization period where anytime you tell one of these stories to anyone around here, just another day in Springfield, just another day in Eugene, just another day in Oregon. This is just normal, and
Wow,
there's no
dude.
fighting back against it because it's so normal. And now they have access to the schools. We have youth activist training camps in this area,
What?
and they are plastered all over the telephone poles downtown in both cities. And it encourages parents to bring their kids to learn about left wing activism, training these kids to go out and to get attacked by cops like I did, to get drunk, to get rage, to have someone try to run you down in the street and
What?
put a gun in your face. That's what they want for these fucking kids
Oh my
because
god,
they don't
dude.
understand.
Uh, later, send me a picture if you see those things. If you could send
Yeah.
me one, I'd very much appreciate that. I mean, wow, dude, Portland and all Oregon is gone down the drain. It is so insane there, dude. All that hard part of the country it is so. Yeah, they're trying to totally take away our democracy. They actually are. I believe it.
Yeah.
I
And I
believe
want to
it.
say this too. If we want to deal with the problem in Oregon, yes, we have to look at Portland. Yes, Portland is bad. Eugene and Portland are 50-50. We have the state capital, which is Salem. And yes, there's been a couple protests there, mostly right wing. Whenever there's an Antifa protest in Portland, all the people from Eugene are going over to Portland. Whenever there's a protest in Eugene,
Oh,
all the people from Portland are going into Eugene. So if we keep this
oh.
focus on this one city in this state, where really two cities, it's really just Portland and Eugene that are blue. The rest of the state is red. That's why they
That's
want to
what I
divide it apart
thought.
once they go to Idaho.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I thought. But it feels like the whole Oregon is insane. But you're right,
No,
it's
it's all
Portland.
red. Like as soon as you leave this town, it's
Ah,
rednecks.
wow. That's really fascinating that they're there. Oh, wow, dude. This is like really scary stuff. So now you're out of Antifa and you're starting to talk about it
Yeah.
because you
Um,
feel a need to talk about it.
I do. I feel guilt. I feel that a lot of these policies enacted, there a lot of it is our fault. What the Biden administration is doing is our fault. They're piggybacking off these shitty ass trans influencers who want to whip their tits out of the White House and do all this crazy shit. And you know what this ties back to? Ultimately, what I think is this is eugenics. This is
Oh,
eugenics.
gosh.
Margaret Sanger began this in the early 1900s,
I know.
and this is something. If you
Yeah.
don't mind, I know I've been doing a lot of reading. I put together a lot of notes
Oh,
for
no, no,
this.
no. I love it. I love it. Eugenics is something that's on everybody's lips right now.
Yeah, and also I want to say, as someone who is pro-abortion, definitely within limits, I think that was
Yeah,
abused, much like the trans situation. You had doctors doing abortions willy-nilly. No one
of
wanted to pay
course.
attention to it, and now it's gone.
Yeah. No, no, no. That's the same. That's going to happen with the which we call top surgery, but now it's really just a double mastectomy. That's what's going to happen with that because they're just literally taking boobs off of 15-year-olds, and like some of these surgeons are doing 2 and 3 surgeries a day. I mean, what? What surgeon can you imagine? That's like literally like and these are all young kids. People, wake up. We can't do this to young. They don't have the understanding of their body parts. at that age. You don't.
Well, and that's what they take advantage of, because in all
That's
these
right.
different communist countries throughout time, you had to get sexual education in the school that encouraged kids to be sexually open, because then you would have good revolutionaries who were primed for whatever they needed to do. They wouldn't hold anything back. So sex
Wow.
education in communist countries became very much kind of like what we're seeing here, where it's just very inappropriate, very much, adults and kids in the same video. Shit like genderqueer, which is sitting on the shelf of a store here called Books with Pictures. They have a comic book shop, and they have all the genderqueer copies with notes on them that say
That.
too explicit. And I'm like, yeah, there's 15-year-olds sucking each other off in that.
Oh my God. Dude, I come from that industry. You know that. I did porn. I'm never shy to talk about that, but I'm an adult and I made adult industry stuff and I create products for adults. I do not believe children should be anywhere around that kind of stuff. It's not appropriate. Bottom line, but people will be like, well, you're a pornographer. I'm like, I make adult stuff. I have huge boundaries around kids and sexual objects or books. I didn't learn how to be trans. I just am. You didn't learn how to be gay. You just are. We weren't taught that in our schools. You don't have to teach somebody to be trans or gay or you know it. You innately know who you are. That's why I'm telling you, they are teaching these kids to call themselves pansexual at 13. What?
Or asexual. Just get them
Or
identifying with not having sex at all so they don't reproduce.
That's right. That's why I do believe the kid thing is really freaking me out, dude. When you said eugenics, I mean, it sounds
Hmm.
so far fetched, but they're literally sterilizing children. They are. That's what puberty blockers are.
Yes, and this came from the left. So this is the outline I put together. So for
Wow.
anyone who doesn't know, Margaret Sanger, she was in a women's chapter at the KKK, but there was no leadership. She wanted to be the first female leader of the KKK.
I didn't know that.
She was denied that position. Yeah,
Oh
and getting
gosh.
denied a position like that and being a woman like that was something to prove. Well, then she went on to tinker with some new projects, and she said, "Well, I'm going to show all these guys women are powerful too." So essentially, in 1921, she went on to found the American Birth Control League. Um, Later, she endorsed the 1927 Buck v. Bill, which ruled that states could sterilize the unfit with or without their knowledge. So basically,
Oh,
saying, you
what?
black people, it doesn't matter
No,
whether they know
right.
it
Are
or not. We
people
got to tamp them
are
down.
right? Or autistic people, or people that we don't want to like very very Nazi, dude. That's like so
Yeah,
insane. Oh, I
which are
didn't
all the
know that.
people that are getting aborted and sterilized in the highest numbers in the modern era. So she later
That's
went on to help create the Negro Project, which was a plan to have black doctors sterilize black patients as white doctors were not trusted at the time. This basically lasted from 1939 to 1942 and was pretty
what?
short lived, but a lot of inspiration was taken from it moving forward. And in 1934, the Nazis began to adopt her positions, and she was praised as the greatest socialist in America.
Wow,
In
dude, I didn't even know this.
1939, yeah, like some of this I didn't even know until I was going through this. I was like, "Holy fucking shit!" And for anyone interested, there's a great book by Margaret Sanger called "The Pivot of Civilization," and it outlines everything. You open it up and it explains 2023 for you, in my opinion.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow. What's the name of the book?
The Pivot of Civilization.
Pivot. Thank you. Okay.
And from there, in 1939, a decree was circulated from the Nazis that all women and mothers were to report all infants and newborns under the age of 3 who displayed signs of mental and physical abnormalities. Facilities were then erected by a man named Dr. Carl Brandt, and he branded them children's clinics. They were advertised as treating the children's illnesses, but ultimately wound up being a death camp for the unfit. The parents would be informed about the child's death and would be told that it was due to sickness or disease, or simply have been too unfit to survive due to their genetic makeup. Further adding to the concern that these children bore problems and ought to be dealt with.
Oh my god. This is insane. Like I can't even believe I'm hearing this.
Yeah, and this is our history. This isn't German history. This is our history that the Germans took inspiration from. The
Which
same
is
as when they
even
looked at
more.
Jim Crow laws.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
And
how can you not see parallels of what's happening today?
exactly, and this is what I wanted people in Antifa to wake up to. You want to go after Nazis?
That's right.
They're Nazis to go after. There really are.
Oh, for
There's no doubt
sure.
about this.
No doubt.
And like, this woman's dead now. She died in 1966, but her legacy, it still lives on. And in 1942, the American Birth Control League, they turned into the Planned Parenthood Federation
There
of
you go.
America, And this
Very
happened after
good.
birth control for married couples became legal. So they took that foothold, and then they went to establish Planned Parenthood. And after that, they began issuing these annual Margaret Sanger Awards. People like Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Jane Fonda got them. I think they cut off the awards in 2015 during the Black Lives Matter protest, and they simultaneously started going around to the different Planned Parenthood headquarters and taking out pictures of Margaret Sanger and taking out her name and all of her likeness because they didn't want Black Lives Matter getting a hold of that. So they just silently backed off in the distance.
Wow, dude. This is like, and now Planned Parenthood is the biggest administrator of drugs to trans people. They are anyone could go to a Planned Parenthood and have and be transitioned in 15-minute intake. It's absurd. They weren't ever made. How did they become a gender clinic? They were made for female reproductive health. That now all of a sudden they're on the trans train. That, I mean, people wake up. They're the ones who are administering tons of this stuff to these young people in horrible intakes with people who are clinicians. They're not even doctors. They're not even endocrinologists. They're like, what do they call them? Clinicians or nurse practitioner?
Something like that. I'm not too sure of the specifics on that one.
But, wow, dude. That was really insane what you just told me. My head is spinning.
Yeah, it's bad. And the more you understand this too, and you understand the history, and that it really was, this whole thing from the beginning was pinned against science versus God. And everyone's like, well, why are the Christians so uppity? And why this and why that?
Yeah.
Well, you got to go back to the history and realize the war started as a war against Christianity, that this would be the age of man and women. This was not to be the age of God. So, of course, the Christians are freaking out. For anyone sitting here wondering why Christians are freaking out in 2023 and why they're so uppity, go read one book in the Bible, the book of Revelations. Walk away from that. Tell me that doesn't apply to the modern era. And ask yourself, if you were in that position, wouldn't you be freaking out a little bit too? Yeah. But these are the people who are looking at this. The liberals aren't looking at this. No. And, I have a lot of people down in Texas, women in my life, who aren't for abortion whatsoever. But when they came and did what they did in Texas, they were like, this is over the top. Yeah. So what did they do as a result? They started becoming more centered, and they started. It's more of the conservatives and the Christians, I feel right now, who are willing to take the initiative and look across the aisle.
Oh no, it's true. I have more conversations with conservatives who supposedly hate me and are willing to have a conversation than liberal media won't talk to me, dude. Like woke, none of those people. They call me a Nazi. It's insane, dude. Like that's how insane the whole thing is. But the actual conservatives are willing to sit down at the table with me. That's where I'm like, something's wrong here. I come from a full-on liberal attitude towards life, and now the people who I used to think hated me actually like want to have a conversation. So there's a lot going on here that's really scary, my friend. And we're gonna have to end here because I could go on for 2 hours.
Could I just read one more thing before we go? Because I wanted to try to work it in, but I wasn't able to.
Please do. And that's okay. Yeah.
This may seem a little out of left field, but this is a result of what I believe that the protests and what everything brought. So about a month and a half ago, I had an old coworker at the Chevron off Gateway in Springfield. So right as you're getting off the interstate to go to Portland, the Chevron's right there.
Yeah.
My old coworker's name was Meredith Shipman. She was murdered in the parking lot about a month and a half ago. And everyone there has been signed to NDAs. None of them disclosed anything to me. I did my own sleuthing in the community. I found my own goddamn answers because what happened was bullshit. She was murdered. She left her phone on the gas pump. She turned around to go get it. There was a person in the U-Haul trying to get her phone. When she chased after the U-Haul to try and get it, they ran her over, killed her on impact. I've got mixed reports, so it may be true, maybe not. Some people have told me that the person backed up and ran over her again to make sure.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. So the police pulled the U-Haul over about a block or two away. All they managed to do was get the name, get the license plate number, sent them on their way, said we'll get into an investigation when we get to it.
What?
Nothing has happened since. The media, KZI, and the Register Guard said it was an accident when no rule of accident has been put out, essentially. Still pending investigation that's not even happening. And this woman's family is suffering. They're having to pick up the medical costs. They are having to deal with all this shit. the people that she worked with are going to work. They're not allowed to say anything. They had to come into work 3 or 4 hours after it happened, sit at the cash register, sit at the gas pump while they looked over at the dead corpse of Meredith.
But something's wrong here, dude. Like, what do they mean? Didn't everyone see that U-Haul run her over?
There were witnesses, and like I said, they caught up with them right up the road, and they let him go. They didn't search the U-Haul.
Well,
There's
so what do you
drugs,
think?
human cell phones, like who knows what was in there?
Why do you think that they are not investigating this?
Because their hands are tied.
What?
Because we scared them. I feel like we broke the police department here. The worse the protests got, the worse the riots got,
I see.
the
what
worse
you're
we
saying.
became off as a society. This isn't me slamming the Eugene Police Department. In fact, I owe them a huge apology for the shit that I took part in. I guess this is the Springfield Police Department, but whatever. Same thing. I protested here too. But no, I think that this is a genuine instance of the cops having their hands tied, and I imagine any officer who responded to that probably went broken that they could not serve justice, that they had the motherfucker, and that person was gone. So I want to get this story out. Again, no employees told me about this. There was NDAs, which only further prompted my interest and my curiosity. And there is a GoFundMe for anyone interested.
Okay,
Meredith's
great.
shipment on GoFundMe.
Well, you'll
Springfield,
send me the
Oregon.
link. You'll send me the link as well. Sorry,
Okay.
and I'll put it here so people can see it. I'm just this. So you think that their hands are tied by the actual like state? Like, don't touch these people. Don't do anything. Like, because of all the problems that happen between the police and Antifa and all that. So you think that they're backing up?
They're backing up, and they're leaving the violence to us. The other week there was about 2 attempted carjackings. I worked
they
in the
just
same
drove by.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
They just drove by. Like I
mean,
so
can
many
you kind
guns
of
and
blame
knives,
them?
like,
I mean, do you kind of blame them on some level? I mean, they're in a really hard place, police, at this point. They really are, because if they do kind of do things, it's it's that weird thing. Like, if you do, you're screwed, and if you don't, you're screwed. That's kind of like how I feel. Police are all over the place, not just there, dude. Here in LA, everywhere. I think they're in a very difficult situation.
and they deserve our open eyes. But for the ones that are good or the ones we don't know are bad, show them some fucking respect. You see them driving down the road,
That's right.
Wave your hand at them.
Yep,
Tell
I
them
do
hello,
that all the
officer,
time.
because officers here, they don't go into the stores and coffee shops in their uniform anymore. They're plain clothes. You notice it.
Oh
They
my
do not show
God.
themselves outside of work
Because they'll get harassed.
or worse.
Wow, dude, that is just, I'm not okay with that. I'm not. My sister was a cop. I'm around a lot of people in the military, cops. I'm just not okay with that. If you don't like it, like, yeah, there's needs some reform overall, I think. But come on, you go try to be a cop. It's a very difficult job. And it's not, of course, there's bad cops, but I would say the majority are not bad. And yeah, they're not, dude. They're not coming to the job to go try to kill people. I just don't think that's true.
They militarize the police to make them seem like villains.
That's right.
Those guns and those tanks, they weren't there for anything specific. They were there to get us worked up.
That's right. They were there to intimidate you. No, it's to intimidate you, 100%. But it was going wild there, Antifa. They were going nutty over there in Portland. They're like doing some scary stuff, dude. They still are. No, you're right. So Ty, I really totally appreciate you. You seem like an awesome dude. We'll definitely be friends now. And I'm gonna put all your information, whatever you want me to put. You'll send me an email. We'll put it there. I want to tell everybody, thank you so much for watching today. That was such a wow. You gave us some crazy information. And give Ty some love in the comments, because I always love seeing that. And this helps me bring back these great guests, and we start getting this great conversation with people who have things that I haven't ever heard before. So with that, like, subscribe, ring the bell thing, do all that. Send this all to your friends and help me get, my numbers up, and we'll keep moving on with these awesome guests. So I'll see you guys on Wednesday in the live. And again, thank you so much. Bye.